You're listening to DraftKings Network.
Folks, Smirnoff. I love it. Smirnoff knows there's no I in football. It's a we thing, best enjoyed with good drinks and great company. Home or away, we rally together, cry together, and always rally cry together because there's no I in fandom. Smirnoff, the world's #1 vodka, is perfect for easy, delicious cocktails for fans over 21. As the official vodka partner of the NFL, Smirnoff's award-winning taste has been igniting the collective spirit since 1864. Grab a bottle of Smirnoff at your local retailer and head to Smirnoff.com to find recipes of delicious cocktails perfect for game day. Please drink responsibly. Smirnoff, #21 vodka, distilled from grain, 40% alcohol volume. The Smirnoff Company, New York, New York. Please do not share with anyone under legal drinking age.
Welcome to the Big Suey, presented by DraftKings.
Why are you listening to this show?
The podcast that seems very similar to the other Dan Le Batard podcast.
I'm sorry, I'm not going to apologize for that.
In fact, the only difference seems to be this imaging.
I have been tempted in restaurants just walking past tables to grab somebody's fries that if they're just there. That hasn't happened to you guys?
I've done it.
And now, here's the marching man to nowhere, Fat Face, and the habitual liar.
We're going to onboard David, Samson, and Adnan here, and they have a top 5 today that I already took issue with. We'll explain that in a moment, but Adnan is an Emmy Award-winning host for MLB Network. David Samson hosts Nothing Personal as Baseball Chops. You all know that. So I'm going to start with a baseball question, and really something that's sad, which is Mike Trout. He's barely played. This is one of the recognized as arguably his generation's greatest baseball player, and we're seeing his body betray him. Is this a deal where a change of scenery will all of a sudden make him healthy? What is going on here with Mike Trout? Adnan, we begin with you.
Adnan, you're muted.
Adnan, I'm going to take it right back, and I'm going to begin with David now. David, you have the floor.
Here's the problem with Mike Trout. It is no longer a situation where you say, oh, he's just injury prone. It's going to get better. He's played one game after the All-Star break in 3 of the last 4 seasons. Think about that. That would be a stat of the day. We don't have to do it because I'll do it. Stat of the day.
So where is
one
this
game?
Going? Where is this going with Mike Trout? It
means that Mike Trout's now closer to Don Mattingly than he is to one of the best players who ever played.
So give me the front office opinion. If you're doing an eval, let's say you have a different budget and you're approaching this much differently than you did from your time down here in South Florida. You guys were buyers occasionally. The Delgado move was a good one. You guys went for it occasionally.
You criticized me for all the buys we did where we traded away prospects who ended up being good.
Dude, let me tell you, like my favorite era of Marlins baseball were the few years after you won the World Series where you went for it. You made the LaDuca trade, the great trade with the Dodgers. Duke. You went after Delgado. You guys were competing for it, and that's all I really ever wanted from it. I gave you some credit there, but geez, all right, stop taking it so.
How about your show's called
Nothing Personal. Yeah.
Remember Carlos Lee?
I do remember. And you guys, that was a good example. Like, I'm good with you guys going for it and failing. So, separate yourself from how you used to do business because we just highlighted the success. You did a lot of sales and capitulating.
Both ways.
So, let's say you're the Mariners, all right? A team that's right there. You got a good pitching staff. You definitely need a bat. And say this is next season. How do you evaluate a talent like Mike Trout? You have his contract, obviously, but where do you project this player? You just mentioned Don Mattingly, and that would give you pause, certainly.
Well, Don Mattingly was a certain Hall of Famer, except he just couldn't be healthy. He hurt his back. And I think about $213 million over 6 years. And I asked this question on Nothing Personal. I ask it of any baseball fan who loves baseball. Would you sign Mike Trout to $213 million over 6 years right now?
Did you hear Adnan Burke check his microphone?
I apologize. David was making an excellent point. I just want to double check a little quiet check. Like, yeah, okay, I am here as well.
We heard.
Listen, I'm with Samson. He's Don Mattingly now, man. 3-time MVP, and now you got these injuries. I guess he's a Hall of Famer because how many 3-time MVPs are there? But to your point, Mike, last offseason, remember there was rumors, stuff being leaked out. David remembers this. The Angels basically saying, hey, we wouldn't be averse to trading Mike if he was open to that, but he has all the cards in his hand, like wink, wink, Mike. If you want to waive this thing, and everyone says, look at the Phillies. He's from Millville, New Jersey. He grew up a Phillies fan, South Jersey. We know Dave Dombrowski wants to wants to buy John Middleton. So the time to make a move for Mike Trout would have been a season ago for the Phillies. Now he's really damaged goods. Like, I feel horrible for Mike, and I feel horrible for the Angels. This guy has only played 48% of games over the past 4 years going into this year, and he barely played this year. It's really frustrating.
Did we just wake you up? Like, let's be honest here. You had the computer troubles.
You battled through phlegm.
You've got showing is not.
The energy's there. Energy's there, but the phlegm is also there.
What did you do in the shower
I have
this
young
morning?
kids up since I've been up since 7, but I look disheveled. So I didn't just wake up, but I look like hell because I've been up since 7. I have young kids, and I've kicked them out. I'm in a hotel in Boston. I said, you guys have to stay outside here. I'm on the Dan Le Batard show. But no, I did not just wake up, but I look like hell.
They're just in the hallway?
All you have to say was kids.
No, they're not. I'm
Loitering?
just joking, coding. I gave them to my wife. They're down having breakfast. I'll show you the eggs. We got eggs over here. We've got some.
Let me see those eggs. Hotel eggs? It can't be
Great scrambled hotel eggs.
there we go.
Got cheese on that?
Fantastic.
Yeah. Before we get into the top 5, which is top 5 motion picture soundtracks, which has already got me fired up, I want to talk to you about the 90s in general. I am revisiting the 90s right now, seeing some movies that I had maybe seen once in my life or bits and pieces of.
I hope you're going to say Wild Things, Mike, but go ahead.
I'd watch Wild. I don't need a refresher course on Wild Things. I burned Wild Things out through my most formative years. But I revisited films this week like Crimson Tide, which I gave 5 stars. That was an absolute banger of a movie. I watched Backdraft, which, doesn't quite hold up, but it's got an unbelievable cast. And I started watching, because I wasn't aware of this, Backdraft 2, which was made in 2019. There was a sequel in which many of the cast reprise their roles. So I wanted to ask you generally, how do you feel about the 90s? Because if you look at the Best Picture nominees, you can make a very strong argument for the 90s being the golden age of cinema.
Listen, the 70s for me, Mike, is the best ever, and to be specific, it's 1967 to 1977, Bonnie and Clyde, The Graduate, the first 2 Godfathers, Taxi Driver, Mean Streets, etc. But you're right, the 90s is outstanding because that was that great indie wave, and you had Pulp Fiction and Fargo and Secrets and Lies and, The Big Lebowski, and filmmakers taking chances and studios willing to do that. Now, this era right now kind of reminds me of the 80s. It's a lot of recycled movies and a lack of inspiration and superhero movies, etc. So 90s movies I have a real soft spot for, man. Those are some of my favorite films. Magnolia back in 1999, Goodfellas in 1990. I'm sure David agrees with me. The 90s was a great decade.
I can't imagine that you think the 80s were full of recycled movies. Just start and end with John Hughes. Every one of those was original. Every one of those was all about what it is to grow up. And if you're an 80s child, I don't think you view the 80s as recycled at all.
It was the sequel generation. You can ask anybody who knows anything about movies. The 80s was when they had these big budget movies, blockbusters. They make 1, 2, look at Rocky, 1, 2, 3, 4. I mean, this was the era of the 80s of recycled sequels. The 90s was more original filmmaking, Miramax and the rise of Harvey Weinstein, etc. We all know about Harvey off the field, horrible guy. But as far as cinematically speaking, the 90s was a real boon. I can't believe you think the 80s was like a rich, fertile era. There's no way that was. You ask anybody, 70s and 90s, great. 80s, no.
I've become a real admirer. I was when he was with us. Tony Scott tragically took his own life. I'm revisiting a lot of his films right now because I love generally the narratives that he established, especially with action movies. He found a way to make you care about characters in ways that action movies all too often miss the mark. I think Man on Fire is a premier example of how to get you invested in characters and still have a kick-ass action movie. Crimson Tide, when people recount all the great movies that Tony Scott did, I think should be possibly regarded at the very top of the heap because you have Tony Scott at the top of his game, you have Zimmer scoring at the top of his game, you have Denzel and Gene Hackman, who might be the most underrated actor of his generation because the roles that he chose were interesting in that he never really wore prosthetics. He never really went for big historical Academy cash grabs.
Are we talking Denzel or Hackman?
We're talking about Hackman in particular because
Mississippi Burning.
Yeah,
Hackman
Terrible name for
generally in his career avoided prosthetics, avoided going for roles that you would deem Oscar bait, and he still knocked it out of the park. And you had 2 actors that were playing off one another in spectacular ways, and I think it holds up, especially with everything in the news stream. And then I look back at the year that was 1995. And I saw in the 96 Academy Awards, Babe got nominated for Best Picture, which Babe is a fine movie. Crimson Tide did not. It seemed as though Crimson Tide kind of got left by the wayside as all these other movies. Braveheart won that year. I think Crimson Tide's actually better than Braveheart. Crimson Tide is an incredible movie. You should all rewatch it. I'm begging for you guys to have a good opinion, a favorable opinion.
I love this crusade towards Crimson Tide.
I get like this about movies. I get like this about Heat. I get like this about Collateral. When I find a movie that still resonates and connects and
He's been
everything
talking about it
is
all
great,
morning. He can't get off Crimson Tide.
Crimson Tide. You guys love it? 5 stars?
I happen to love Crimson Tide, but I do have it behind Braveheart. And although now looking back, I try not to watch Braveheart or think about Braveheart, but at the time, I had that well above. I was not a Babe fan personally.
That'll do, Pig.
I think it's because I'm kosher.
Gene Hackman's best role, clearly The Birdcage.
He was great. Gene Hackman was in a mid-90s heater. You have Denzel like realizing that, I've gotten this... I've gotten the Academy attention. Like, let me go for biggest movie star on the planet status, see if that's achievable. And I think everybody did a bang-up job here. All right, so let's get to...
You haven't even mentioned No Way Out.
Yeah, No Way Out, great. Listen, Unforgiven, obviously. If we want to go French Connection, the conversation. I'll say this, Mike, for Crimson Tide. There's some incredible scenes of Denzel Hackman just shouting at each other, like Hall of Fame shouting. Gene Hackman is A+.
Yeah. A lot of racial tension that by the end, throughout the movie is subtle, and then by the end becomes a little bit more overt. But I think you can make an argument in terms of like workplace dramas. This is a great film. There's a lot of great supporting cast. Gandolfini understands the assignment, and is seemingly too excited for it. It's just a great film. All right, the top 5s here. We'll begin with Samson. That's how we do it, right, Chris? We do.
You.
Yeah. I have a real bone to pick with this, and I'll say it on the front end. The soundtrack has to be an original motion picture soundtrack. There are a lot of great soundtracks, especially in the 90s. Here, let me get my argument off the ground.
Preemptive crapping of our list before Samson and I've even spoken.
Well, because I've made my own list because I was aware of the loopholes that you guys used.
I love the preemptive crap.
I did it right before the show. Your soundtracks are more compilation albums. And yes. I think an original motion picture soundtrack has to support the art, has to be created for the film itself. Original music meant to supplement the film. And now you can get music from the time that helps supplement a movie, and that could be great. But I think for this discussion, you have to provide that caveat.
And I think that you could have had a top 5 that was of top 5 original movie songs or soundtracks. That's great. But this top 5 is top 5 movie soundtracks.
All right, David, let's get underway. But leave me enough time. Leave me the 40 seconds to do the OSTs.
I'll go right through it and just tell you number 5, Across the Universe. Across the Universe, it's Beatles songs, but it's sung. Wait a minute, this counts for you, Mike. It's sung by Jim Sturgis and Evan Rachel Wood.
They were great.
So I assume that counts.
No, is it great? I love the movie, love the soundtrack, not an original motion picture soundtrack.
That was a movie?
These are Beatles songs. It's more of a
so it has to be songs sung by people, originally written, like the Dirty Dancing soundtrack. The only one that counts is Hungry Eyes.
David, I know your top 5. You have a ton of jukebox musicals in there. It's just doesn't count, in my opinion. Doesn't count.
He's going to hate our lists.
I don't care. Number 4, The Big Chill.
Awesome. No, give him a big horn. Big Chill's awesome, David. Go ahead.
There's only one horn.
I'm not even going to defend it.
No
I will defend number 3, though.
Incredible soundtrack.
Number 3 is a movie called Harold and Maude. Harold and Maude is a movie with Ruth Gordon and a young boy whose name escapes me, Adnan. Bud. His name is Bud somebody. It's about an octogenarian in a relationship with a younger boy, not inappropriate. And the soundtrack is Cat Stevens. And it is a fantastic movie, fantastic soundtrack.
Hal Ashby, the director, very underrated. Obviously made a lot of great 70s films. It's a good call.
Bud Cort. Bud Cort was his name.
Right. That's right.
Not that old. Number 2. This has original songs, Mike, so this wins. Moulin Rouge. It's got some mashups, but it does have some songs written just for
That's a jukebox musical. It's a jukebox music. They're singing Smells Like Teen Spirit. What are you doing?
What about Come What May?
Yeah. There are some there are some original songs on there, but largely that is what is referred to as a jukebox musical.
I don't think that you can come up with a top 5 list of soundtracks that are all original songs, the entire soundtrack.
David, like the most romantic part of the movie, they're singing Elton John's Your Song. Like,
I know, I love that. I watched that scene over and over again.
Do the can.
And number one, Jim Broadbent, I love you. Number one, Almost Famous.
Oh, yeah.
That's not disputable. Stillwater, that's some original songs.
Yes.
But it's also derivative of the time, and there's plenty of songs that Cameron Crowe was a fan of that's in there, so it's more of a compilation soundtrack, in my opinion. But anybody would suggest, if you're doing just a catch-all for motion picture soundtracks, that would be up there in anybody's list. And it's a great film.
It's my number one. It's my number
it's
one
your favorite
film of
movie.
all time.
Yeah, it's your favorite movie ever.
And I think it counts because it does have.
Do you have the Stillwater T-shirt?
I do.
Where
Oh,
Billy
is he?
Crudup is just like in the only one that's in
He's in
focus.
the front.
Yeah. All right, go ahead,
just one of
Adnan.
the
Leave me 40
out-of-focus
seconds,
guys.
okay?
I will, Mike. Don't worry. You're going to hate my list, too. Philip Seymour Hoffman, Lester Bangs, all-time great. Number 5. It's basically just one song where they play it over and over. Radio Raheem. It's Do the Right Thing. Fight the Power, over and over the soundtrack. Blazing in 1989, the soundtrack, the anthem of the summer. David, great song, great soundtrack.
Not known for its soundtrack, though.
Number 4, Train Spotting.
Also not known for its soundtrack.
It is. Iggy Pop
great
right out of
soundtrack.
the gate. Lost for Life, Mike. I need that's great
Lust for
soundtrack.
Life's not written for Train Spotting.
Correct, but it is a great soundtrack, which I knew you'd back me up on. Lou Reed also in the soundtrack. Number 3, you're going to hate this one. This is a jukebox musical. I'll agree with that one. American Graffiti. Great 60s, 70s music. Awesome soundtrack. Number 2, I'm completely with David. Motown for Life. Big Chill. Awesome movie. Jeff Goldblum loves the Motown. And number 1, Mike's going to hate it. People are going to love it, though. I'm telling you right now. 30th anniversary, one of the great films of all time. A great soundtrack from Quentin Tarantino. It made Neil Diamond cool. Pulp Fiction, number 1.
Neil Diamond made Neil Diamond cool. All right, so just let's
Red
get that out of
Sox
the way.
made Neil Diamond cool.
No, Neil Diamond was Saving Silverman might have made Neil Diamond cool.
When you compare number ones here, it's clear that David won because Almost Famous is about that soundtrack. Pulp Fiction is not about that soundtrack. It just happens to have a few good songs.
If all the chips are
Not
stuck
more than a
together,
few good songs. Iconic soundtrack. Go ahead, Cody. Go ahead.
it's one nacho if they're all stuck together.
No,
Mike, I need your list badly because I can't think of 5 movies that would qualify with your rules.
All right.
Non-Disney.
So, like, non-Disney division, because we were having a big argument about how Phil Collins absolutely killed it with Tarzan. And I decided that if I included Disney in this, it would all be Disney soundtrack. So that's for a topic for another day.
But before you give your list, Mike, I really hope you have one which is all just like orchestral music. If it's all just Hans Zimmer score, I'll love it. Go ahead.
Ooh, there are some like really good. We'll do scores another day. Number 5.
Another time.
Number 5, Grease.
Tell me more.
I got chills. They're multiplying.
They're multiplying.
So for number 4, this Cape Crusader had so many great soundtracks that I wore out when I was a kid. So I had to basically decide one Batman song, one Batman album to eliminate the genre. I was torn between Batman 89, Batman and Robin, but I settled on Batman Forever as the number 4.
Interesting. Okay.
Number 3, super problematic. Let's not stay here, but Space Jam was an absolute heater. Number 2, underrated, Black Panther OST. And number 1, Saturday Night Fever. Shame on you for not.
Stations watching, Get Rich or Die Trying, Above the Rim, Juice, Bottle of Black and Black Panthers. Wow.
Above the Rim, great one. Attaboy, Juju.
Happy summer concert season, folks. It's Mike Ryan, and you know how often I go to concerts. You know how often I go to sporting events. I even mix in the occasional Major League Baseball game. Just did that a couple of weeks ago in Chicago. What a great experience that was. And Game Time made that experience so easy because Game Time is an authorized ticket marketplace of Major League Baseball. It makes getting tickets faster and easier. Prices on the Game Time app actually go down the closer it gets to the first pitch. With killer last-minute deals, all-in pricing, views from your seat, and their lowest price guarantee, which I love because if for whatever reason you find a lower price out there, Game Time will match it 110%. Game Time takes the guesswork out of buying MLB tickets. You get flash deals, zone deals, Game Time ticket coverage too. Your purchase is covered with the most flexible customer service policy in the ticketing industry. Take the guesswork out of buying MLB tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use code DAN for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code DAN for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed.
Don Batard. Dan is getting to his microphone real quick. Sorry about that.
Thank you, Stugotz. I appreciate it. My apologies. I had to run out for a moment.
Stugotz.
Did you eat something?
I did. I grabbed some turkey.
Yeah.
You can hear it in my mouth.
Yeah, you made it seem like you were doing something urgent. Instead, you were just stuffing
I
your
was
face.
doing something urgent.
Yeah.
I went upstairs and grabbed some turkey, and then I ran back down here. I'm sorry that I'm late. It's very unprofessional of me.
Why do you have an entire turkey leg in your pocket?
I do. I walk around here like it's like it's Disney World with one giant piece of turkey at all times.
This is the Dan Le Batard Show with the Stugotz.
Today's episode is sponsored by DraftKings. Stay tuned because you'll hear more about DraftKings and all it has to offer throughout the show. DraftKings, the crown is yours.
So, Mike, I want to get into basketball, Olympic basketball with you because you're wearing the hat. But I had just gotten a text during the break from my buddy Warren, and all it said was, shower beers are amazing. And then I turned back to this math that Tony was doing. And speaking of amazing, all right, I want Tony to explain, right? But when you get to the part about how often you hang out, or nights per week, I want you to pause for me, okay?
Okay.
But give me the math on you figuring out how many shower beers you have had since, and we're just going to keep it this way, since you've turned 21 years old.
Yes, of course, because you can only drink after.
Of course, even in the
you turn
shower,
21 years old.
the rules are you can only
21
drink
and over.
at
Yeah,
21.
exactly. So prime going out years 21 to 27. So we're given a 6-year sample here of going out. I feel like we could agree though. Normally, college years are the biggest years of going out, where you're going out multiple
General
nights a week.
consensus,
In theory, yes.
but Izzy definitely
It varies.
Definitely outliers. There are outliers.
No,
to the
if he's
test.
an outlier, again, we do this for the average, not the outliers. So 52 weeks in a year last time I checked.
Right.
We've got about 2.5 nights out per week.
Pause.
Okay.
You're talking, first of all, every single week. That rule, you mean your weekend already booked. Every single week from 21 to 27, you're going out every single weekend, and then one other night?
2.5 is key because Wednesday was Boogies, Thursday was Grow.
Thank you.
And then you had your weekends too.
Also, you had Wing It Wednesdays at Flanny's.
Yes.
Zero
Tumbleweed
exceptions.
Tuesdays.
Every
Wait, going to
single
Wing It
weekend.
Wednesday counts as going out?
Oh, Flanny's counts as going out.
Because you're having beers.
Yeah, you're slamming
Okay, so this is like
responsibly.
you're counting going out as any social gathering where you're having a drink, not like
Right.
going to a
Right.
club.
I'm with
You
Jess. I
described
think
going
of
out?
pre-gaming as a major event, right? If I'm drinking in the shower, I better be staying out till 5 a.m.
No, I'm not. I don't drink in the shower to pregame. I drink in the shower because I find that beer enjoyable.
Okay.
Most
This is
enjoyable.
this is on the basis of pre-gaming.
We
though.
fundamentally disagree on the premise of shower beers, and that's
From
fine.
us.
For
But
the
again-
sake of Tony's argument, it's a pregame shower beer.
I do because I like it.
There's more math
Yeah,
involved
you
here
like-
too, though.
Tony likes it too.
I'm getting in the weeds here,
presumably.
but Tony, is it 21 through 27 or stopping at 27?
Stopping at 27.
Okay,
so
if
21 through 27.
okay,
It's the
okay.
same thing.
Prime
Because if it's
range.
through 27, it's actually 7 years, and you got an extra year there. If you do the math.
Okay, well, I did it
Math.
227.
Okay,
so 6 years.
Stopping at 27.
Yeah, so we got 6 years somewhere
back
here.
out of the weeds.
All
Your
right.
26th Eve birthday, where you turn 27, is the last night.
Right, correct.
Yeah.
So
So you're
again-
not born 1 year old.
Right, exactly. You're
Although
born zero.
some people consider like the 9 months that you were in the womb.
52 weeks.
Republicans.
2.5 nights out per week again. Friday, Saturday, but then you can also mix in a Thursday, Wednesday, Monday, depending on what the situation was. We minus 2 weeks out if you're sick, right? Something else happens.
I love this.
You know, like you have to have a buffer of 2 weeks where you're not at your A game going out, right?
Otherwise, that's crazy.
Exactly.
And
That's
a
too
round
much.
number for you, 50, easier to multiply with.
I see what you're
I don't know
doing,
what
yes.
that's supposed to mean. But so we've got an average of about, remember, 1.25 shower beers per week. So not every time I'm going out am I having a shower beer.
Shout out to the squiggly equal signs. You don't see that many more
Yeah.
times after like college.
Exactly.
I'm
So
definitely paying attention.
So 1.25 shower beers per week on 2.5 nights out per week. So we may not be having a shower beer every time we go out, but we're averaging about 1.25 shower beers per week.
So there are
That's an
times
impressive
you're
number.
going to have more than one in the
No,
shower.
No, that's
There's
half the
sometimes-
time, guys. If he goes out 2.5 times a week and he's only
Per
having
week.
1.25 shower beers a week, that means half the time he goes out during the week, he's having a shower beer.
That's an incredible cadence, by the way. I look at a shower beer as a treat. This is something that only happens a handful of times a year
Let
for
the
me.
subject turn to shower beers, and all of a sudden a mathematician over there, Chris Cody.
You're having 60 shower beers a year, give or take?
So we're looking at,
I
don't jump ahead.
I've never had that many in my life.
So we've got about 50 weeks per year that we're going out. Obviously, we minus the 2 weeks, so we're at 50 weeks per year, at about 2.5 nights out per week, right?
Okay.
Which gives us the possibility for 125 shower beers.
Okay.
Okay. We divide that by what we have an average of per week on beers, which is 1.25 shower beers per week, with 125 possibilities of shower beers.
But why didn't you just multiply 50 by 1.25?
Yeah.
Because I had to show.
Look as impressive.
Exactly. Thank you.
It's a beautiful mind. It's not just two equations.
Exactly. I can't. You want me to put just 600? Is that what you want? You just wanted me to write 600?
Yeah.
No, that's not how we do
man's
things.
showing his work.
Okay. Thank you, Chris. 125 shower beer possibilities to
SPBs.
100. Yes. SPBs, thank you. 1.25 shower beers per week equals about roughly 100 shower beers per year. Now, we multiply 100 shower beers per year on average by 6 years that we did 21 to 27. We're looking at
7 if it's through 27.
Yep. Right. 600 shower beers over a 6-year span. Again, that's not every time you're having a shower beer when you go out. That's 1.25 shower beers per the 52 weeks per the 6 years.
I'm a little confused because I thought we were going to you on why the shower beer just hits better.
How many calories in a Miller Lite?
95.
Can we go back? How did you get the 100?
Per 12, how many ounces? 12?
12.
Tony, where did 100 come from?
Where did 100 come from?
100 SB.
Certainly less than premium regular beer.
We divide 125 shower beer possibilities by the 1.25 average shower beers per week, which gets us to 100 shower beers per year.
Let's just agree that it's an approximation because some people just don't drink backwash.
It's also approximately 57,600 calories you've taken in just in the shower.
Wait,
yeah, but the shower is working some off because you've taken a hot shower here.
Okay, 57,500.
Again, it's a 6-year span, though.
1.25 shower beers per week, and you're drinking 50 weeks of the year. That's 62 shower beers, not 100.
I'm trying to see what your math is. I don't get what you're mathing. I don't get that.
Well, you said there's 52 weeks in a year, minus 2 weeks if you're sick or you're not going out.
Exactly.
You average 1.25 shower beers.
Yeah, but see, here's where you're doing it wrong. You have to get the 50 weeks times your 2.5 nights out per week. That gives you 125 shower beer possibilities, which then you
Per
average
week. Right.
Which then you get 1.25. And
Why
you
does it
subtract
slap
that.
though?
Just because I think it's the mix of the heat from the shower, the coldness of the Miller Lite, and then the anticipation of more Miller Lights post-shower.
Yeah.
That just gets you to a different
time,
place.
Miller time.
I'll tell you why it hits differently. It's because you're thinking about, hey, look, I can drink naked.
Yeah.
And then maybe if I go out, maybe I'll get naked and drink there too. This is going to be awesome.
Yeah. Well, well done.
Thank you. The math checks out, so I'm going to retire this.
That's good mathing over
thank
there.
you.
I was really hoping we could quantify why it connects, but you did well.
I can only state why it hits different. I do the math on how many we can have.
Yeah,
naturally.
Why it connects is more vibes.
Still a little confused.
I'm confused too. But 600, I mean, that's a big number. I wish he would have just ended with BAM! And then we could have transitioned right into the
We can transition right into BAM, and
I'm not Emerald.
I think many people think
You
that
are cooking, though.
I'm anti-BAM, and I understand that because at times I've been like
you and Brian Windhorst, anti-BAM for life.
I'm not anti-BAM. I just
didn't Dan do something like that on PTI?
Yeah, and it was like a a whole thing with Emerald.
Yes, that's exactly it. Wait, we got to get the camera on Chris because he did it better than Dan ever
man.
did.
Yeah.
Right, ready?
Camera on Chris. That was it.
I think BAM is an exceptional international center. I think he's a great center regardless. My whole thing with BAM is not even a thing on BAM. Is like I just want better talent around BAM because I think if you look at international basketball, you're seeing that he gets unlocked in ways. The Heat probably ask him to do too much, and his teammates are a little bit too limited. So I'm not anti-BAM. I'm anti not getting more help from BAM.
I've heard you talk about like he's willing to let anyone be the guy. That's why everyone wants to be here.
That's true.
We've taken shots at him. Like he's on this team of stars, and I know it's a different style of play, but we got to give him his flowers.
I do, and I think that these are fair criticisms, and that I think a lot of alphas want to play in Miami, in part because BAM complements their skill set, and they know that they don't necessarily have to rip the team away from BAM. But on the international game, I think it actually gives my argument a little bit more steam in that if you put different type of players around him, better players around him, you get an even better BAM. And if you make BAM your third best player as opposed to arguably your first best player, now you're cooking.
Well, regardless of who's at fault, I'm not saying that you guys are responsible for the national discourse or perhaps international discourse about Bam Adebayo, but It made me laugh when Brian Windhorst got into this conversation. That's why I mentioned it to him, where he was talking about the South Sudan team and how they're athletic and they've got these wings that, your big guys are going to have to switch onto. And then he said somebody like Bam Adebayo might not get playing time or as much playing time because the whole discussion being Jason Tatum didn't play last time. He will play this time.
I'm a little confused by that, not to cut you off, but I think anytime I watch Joel Embiid start, and it seems as though they've tried to force feed Joel Embiid in the early going, I think out of the three bigs that are getting playing time on this team, Bam, Anthony Davis, and Joel, he's the one least equipped for the international game.
Joel.
Yeah, and I'd rather see Bam and Anthony Davis, who I think is probably underrated in this discussion, get more PT.
Which if you asked people who just watched any of Team USA or even just know international basketball at all and know how Joel Embiid plays, if you would have started with the premise that there's going to be more South Sudanese players, wings that need to be defended, immediately you have to think Joel Embiid is the guy of the bigs who's not going to get the minutes. The fact that Brian Windhorst, who knows more basketball than most people will ever know, he saying Bam would be the guy to sit just is mind-boggling to think that that is what the national opinion of him is when he is most suited to do that and, frankly, the best of those three bigs to do so.
We totally agree. I'd like to get Juju and Tony's thoughts on this because they know ball. Juju, what is your experience in watching Joel Embiid and understanding that you're more of a Celtics fan anyways, and I've heard you, but on the international game specifically with Joel Embiid, it seems as though he tries to lean on some stuff that he does in the NBA. It's not necessarily working out for him. You see defenders that are better equipped for the international game really taking advantage of the lack of 3 seconds. And I think that it kind of sticks out in the international game. Whatever gulf is there in the NBA between perceived gulf between Joel and Bam and Anthony Davis, it's not there in the international game. That's at least what my eyes are telling me.
For sure. I think that his style of play combined with his injuries that he has right now that he's fighting through, it just doesn't make sense for him to be here at all. I think someone like Paolo Banchero or just someone younger with fresh legs and just gold in their eyes, you dig me, would have been a better option. But it looks goofy at times in the international game because the referees ain't falling for that, man. You look crazy as hell falling out over this little man in your arm. You feel me? What you think, Tony?
I think that it's okay to have some players more suitable for an international game than an NBA game. Like that's the reason. Yeah. You don't think so, Izzy?
No, I think so.
I think Joel is more suited for the NBA and what the NBA brings as far as the game style than he does internationally. He looks too big. He looks just in the middle of the lane.
Doesn't move enough.
He doesn't move enough. That's the thing. Like the Sixers have a very specific build to have Joel as their centerpiece. Team USA has 19 killers on him that can get a bucket at any second. Joel's just kind of clogged in the lane, always in the middle. Somebody's trying to drive, and he's just kind of there like, excuse me, sorry.
By the way, the U.S. has several times in recent history have gotten specialists that don't make all-star teams but show up on international basketball teams specific to certain roles. But
does it work with a big? Like Joel.
Well, the thing that sticks out specifically about Joel, outside of everything that we've outlined, is they're force feeding him in the early going to get him in rhythm, and I kind of harken back to my experience watching soccer in that you have an athlete that had a choice to make, and it almost seems, although I don't think that international basketball is this competitive, like. You almost made a promise to Joel Embiid that if he picked the United States, he would start, you would feed him the ball. Because I see that in soccer all the time, that if someone chose the United States over Germany, they're on that team sheet. They're one of the first names. They're going to get the opportunities here because that's sort of the recruiting promise that you made. Kind of like college basketball promises, college football promises. I just thought that Team USA in basketball would be above that because everyone's entering it with the same amount of ego. Maybe I'm naive for having that approach to it.
I think to Tony's point, the idea of there being specialists that is okay for the Olympic team, I think it makes all the sense in the world. There are enough rule changes between the NBA and international game to make it a different enough game that you don't just throw all the best NBA players in there. Like you mentioned about Joel Embiid not moving enough. That is the international game, man. There's not very many people just, unless it's on a major switch or something and it's obvious, that just dump it in and go to work. And so I think, you can do that without insulting the players. It could be the best player in the NBA, just maybe doesn't work for Team USA.
It's why Melo was so good, right? Like, he could get his game in the international game and be an all-star, superstar at the Olympic and international level where, again, he was great in the NBA at what he did, but he could flow so much easier when there was more motion. It just feels like Joel's stuck in the mud.
I would rather see a guy like Jared Allen, for example. He has the trim body up and down the court, and he can knock them balls off of the rim in national play.
Yeah. Are you saying specifically that you wouldn't even have Embiid on the roster? Because that's a take.
Yeah, I wouldn't have him on the roster if I'm the coaches. Why have Embiid on the roster? He's shown you, like, he's been through so much over the past couple of months, from the cerebral palsy to just the knee injury. Bro, rest up. You got PG-13 coming on the way, and the process should be trusted.
You mentioned the differences in the games, and I feel like I was just getting accustomed to how, like, the WNBA refs were using the whistle this season, and then now I'm watching the Olympics, and I don't know what the hell's going on. Like, it is so physical, but even watching yesterday, it's sort of a similar conversation to the women's game. Like, the U.S. is really good because Brianna Stewart and Asia Wilson run the floor, and they're super fast and long, and, like, they can kind of just play ahead of everyone else, and so it's giving them the advantage there. But I do not envy any coach that has to manage a roster with this many superstars on it. It's happening with men and women. Fans getting really upset. They're not seeing their favorite player play. They're not getting enough minutes. They're not getting enough time to get in rhythm, so they're just not shooting well right off the bat, and then they're on the bench. Like, man, that has to be a really hard position to be in if you're a coach, because you want to win the game, but you want to keep players, healthy, and you want to keep people energized for the next round. But at the same time, you're managing egos, you're managing minutes. Like, it just seems like a complete mental game right now.
I also don't want to just harp on Joel Embiid. I think it's a style thing with big men. 2004, Tim Duncan. Many people think he's the greatest big man ever. Did not do anything for that team.
When you're hiring for your small business, you want to find quality professionals that are right for the role. That's why you have to check out LinkedIn Jobs. LinkedIn Jobs has the tools to help find the right professionals for your team faster and for free. As Meadowlark Media continues to grow as a content studio, we strive to hire only the best and most qualified candidates. Thankfully, with LinkedIn, they've made it easy for us to find them. LinkedIn isn't just a job board. LinkedIn helps you hire professionals you can't find anywhere else, even those who aren't actively searching for a new job but might be open to the perfect role. In a given month, over 70% of LinkedIn users don't visit other leading job sites. So, if you're not looking on LinkedIn, you're looking in the wrong place. On LinkedIn, 86% of small businesses get a qualified candidate within 24 hours. Hire professionals like a professional on LinkedIn. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/prep. That's linkedin.com/prep. Post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply.
Don Batard.
Listen, it could be Julius Randle's building. How about that?
The Mecca.
Or it's Julius. The Mecca.
Stugotz.
Steve Martin was a prop comic.
You said that?
I said it 2 seconds earlier than you.
This is the Don Batard Show with the Stugotz.
Presented by Smirnoff. We do game days. Please drink responsibly. The Smirnoff Company, New York, New York.
That's Bell's policy, by the way. Sorry for that incorrect assumption. Back to you, Michael.
Well, I don't know what the secondary ticket market is in Paris. I would love the opportunity to watch Team USA play meaningful games. I really wish Game Time were available for that. Thankfully, here in the United States, Game Time is available, and I've used it so much. You know that. Yeah, I mean, we made a Stanley Cup run that really made me tighten up my summer budget. No more trips until Gainesville, folks. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use the code DAN for $20 off your first purchase. Why should you do this? Because you get to see what your seat looks like through their interface. You get low price guarantees, flash deals. It doesn't just work for sports. You can do it for concerts. Terms apply. Last minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed. Again, redeem code DAN for $20 off your first purchase.
People
Love
ask me all
Game
the time, Mike, if I ever went to any of the Stanley Cup Finals games, and my answers have been pretty consistent. No, I went to one last year. They lost. This year I didn't go. But boy, my buddy Mike sure spent a pretty penny on games 5 and 7, and I tell him that story real quick.
Yeah, I'm just now seeing the gravity of what I did, and We'll make it to year's end, but
cancel Christmas.
Yeah, but thankfully I knew I had the best deals with Game Time there. But one of the things that I did during that Stanley Cup run was I consumed every bit of content that I could about hockey, the tremendous NHL playoffs, and two of the shows that I would turn to were 32 Thoughts and the Jeff Merrick Show. Jeff Merrick, a part of both, essentially co-hosting 32 Thoughts with Ellie Friedman, a tremendous reporter on the NHL side. He's basically Woj for the NHL. Jeff Merrick, even-keeled host, has covered the sport for so many years, and a lot of hockey fans like myself and Roy were bummed to hear this news. What was weird about the separation of Jeff Merrick and Sportsnet, because these shows are no longer going to exist with Jeff Merrick on them. Certainly it'd be tough for the Jeff Merrick show to continue without Jeff Merrick. We had a lot more questions than answers, and it was very strange. And some reporters got to digging, and Roy read up on it. And so, Roy, I'm coming to you here to explain to me the very latest development on one of the more beloved characters that covers hockey.
All right, so we found out that Jeff Merrick was tipping the picks at the NHL draft, and apparently in Nevada they actually have sportsbooks now dedicated to the NHL draft. He sent the tip picks to a friend of his. His name is Mark Seidel, who has a scouting service, and Seidel went to Twitter to correctly predict these draft picks. So the NHL went to the Nevada Gaming Control Board, and they both had separate investigations into the matter. And then we noticed between the NHL draft and last week that Jeff Merrick's content has slowly disappeared up until finally Sportsnet decided to part ways with Jeff Merrick because he was giving proprietary information to somebody outside of the company.
So it depends on how you view these things.
Didn't Schefter do this or somebody?
So, like,
else,
you could say that. Well, it seems as though there was a lot more. There was a lot more lead time. That's where I initially landed on this. I'm so we're penalizing Jeff Merrick for doing something that we celebrate, depending on how you view those things as spoilers. But that things that Woj and Shams and Schefter do routinely. But this investigation suggests that you have the gambling element here, in which the NHL, I certainly understand why they have to be more buttoned up here. But this also seems distinctly Canadian.
That's what I was.
Yeah, well, behind the scenes with any draft, the league tells the production truck who the pick's going to be from the team before they announce it to the audience, so they can get the graphics ready, the video ready, the information about the player ready.
But we're talking about a lot more lead time, so much so that someone was able to actually win money on this inside information. So especially with someone of Jeff's reputation, there's a lot of integrity there.
They said that Jeff Merrick did not stand to having a financial gain from it.
No, and is it clear as to whether or not he knew that this information that he was giving would be used specific to gambling?
No, it's not.
And Jeff hasn't really been speaking about any of this.
Oh, he's been buttoned up. He hasn't said. He went on a social media. He did not say anything on social media about it. Up until when he said, "Hey, I'm leaving sports."
Yeah, my mind went to is how would this story go if this was one of the more prominent NBA writers? Because I actually think that they could survive something like this. Now ESPN has its own sports book, and we're in a very murky place. They're league partners. When you add the gambling aspect of this, I understand how it's further complicated. I do hope, just because I'm a fan of his, that Jeff not only has an opportunity to explain himself, because I do think that there's a difference as to whether or not he knew that the information that he was getting was going to be used like this. And even if he did, I think he's still the type of person that deserves a second chance, because I'm pro second chances. Also, selfishly, I was a huge fan of his work, and I would hate to see that go. They essentially broke up a Canadian Kornheiser and Wilbon here with Friedge and Merrick, and we lose because of this whole very unfortunate situation. Thanks for cleaning that up. And speaking of cleaning things up, I want to circle back to a really polarizing segment that I'm not necessarily proud of that we had about Coco Gauff earlier this week. Now, Coco Gauff, not a great Olympics for the co-flag bearer. Unfortunate there. I think Serena Williams really changed a lot of the math when it comes to women's tennis unfairly. Women's tennis in particular has always generally been, unless there's a GOAT atop of it, very difficult to predict, in part because the matches are shorter, but you have a lot of Grand Slam winners that are relative flashes in the pan. You don't have someone atop the sport like you had with Serena, but because Serena existed, everyone was looking for the next Serena. We've done this a couple of times, and we don't pay attention to how many times someone stumbles with that. And it's a lot of pressure that we're putting on these athletes in a sport that is relatively way more random than it is on the men's side. So, Izzy, let's circle back to the Coco thing that we were talking about. And I just want to say on the front end, I kind of feel like the general point that I was trying to make was missed. And that's my bad, because I didn't communicate it, and it became more of like a meltdown in sports. And I thought that my opinion came off a little dissenting when it was more of a mainstream idea. Basically, the point that I was trying to make, and I sincerely failed in doing so, was basically, I know that my daughter is going to face hardships when she plays sports. I know that there are going to be hormonal things as she gets older. There are going to be frustrations. There are going to be outsized reactions. I don't want this to be a data point fresh in her mind that if she encounters a hardship for a 4-year-old, the hardship could be, no, we're not going to go to Chuck E. Cheese right now, that a 10-minute breakdown saying this always happens to me isn't, because Coco did it, isn't an experience that you should borrow from. So I really missed the mark in being able to do that. And I really have my regrets in saying like things like you guys don't really have children here. But I think that is a contributing factor as to how like that message was missed, because I was working under the assumption that that was assumed.
So first of all, when we're talking about women's sports, don't say hormonal. Don't don't be one of the first things you bring up. First no. It's just going to be jumped all over.
Yeah, no, I
know what you mean.
I understand that. I mean, like with a 4-year-old, I know that my daughter is going to change. There are both things that we can control.
It could be a boy or a girl. They could control their emotions, whatever you want to talk. I get that.
All right, fair enough.
But the part about like, I'm taking sports out of it. And I said this the other day. I felt like you, me, and Jess the other day were almost having 2 or 3 different conversations, because I'm taking the sports out of it. And all I'm saying is, as a father, and I have a bunch of nieces and nephews, I've raised kids that aren't even mine. You expecting your daughter to be perfectly formed as she goes along, regardless of who she learns it from, is naive. She's going to learn bad habits, bad behavior, bad something from somebody. It could be anybody. As a parent, if I'm watching her potentially learn that from somebody who, even if it's somebody that she thinks is somebody that she should look up to, I'm glad I'm there. I'm glad I'm there because I want her to see it. I want her to learn from it. And even if you're saying at this age she can't handle all that, fine. Maybe she takes it, downloads it, and it comes out back in the future, and you can be like, haha, I know where this is coming from. I was there. I watched that happen. So you have more knowledge as a parent on what your daughter is going through, what she's seen, and what she's experienced. If you shield her from Coco, she might see it in school from somebody else where you don't even have the good fortune of being there to know how she took that in.
Understood. All good points. And I would say that I think I'd surprise you with how well equipped I am for very difficult conversations and random questions that a 4-year-old would ask.
Sorry to interrupt, but I said that to you the day. I said, if that's what your experience is and that's what you believe, you and your daughter are prepared for at the moment, fine. Yeah. I'm not opposed to that. What I'm saying is you're speaking for in general, and I feel like that is probably a little too strong from your side.
Here's where my point missed the mark, in that you explained that to me, and I think where you're missing the mark is I know all those things.
Okay.
I know that there are certain things I can't control. I know that there are things that could affect my daughter's behavior and how she reacts to things that I'm going to have to react to in real time. There are also things that I can control. For example, there was this YouTube show that she was watching on YouTube Kids where I didn't like how the children were speaking to the parents in this, and I started seeing her behavior replicate that of what she was seeing there. So I'm not Coco is not a catch-all, but Coco is a data point that in that moment I could have manipulated. In that moment, my thought process was like, let me establish a diversionary tactic here, because not unlike this YouTube show that I saw where I didn't like how the parents were talking to the kids, I don't want to have a very recent example where my daughter sees this reaction, and because she is 4 and because she recognizes Coco, may replicate that behavior, because in a world filled with things that I cannot control, this is one instance in which, as a parent, I had decisions to make.
Sure.
And I thought I navigated it well. And where I erred was I was explaining my thought process instead of actually really trying to detail how I dealt with it, which was I played with slime.
But this is to Jess's point, and I'd like to hear her opinion on this part. This isn't Coco Gauff's fault. There's a difference between sport and a produced show that is aimed for kids. Coco Gauff is not out there thinking, I have to think about the 4-year-olds out there. She might think about it afterward.
Yeah, she might think about it other times.
But at the time, that is not her, at the moment, responsibility.
I don't think I have anything to add. We were on the same page with it, and you said the other day that, like she had a bad day. Athletes have, bad moments sometimes, and I agreed with you, and I thought we kind of like were on the same page with that. And it's not her responsibility to be a good role model as she's playing a game.
No.
Because she's thinking that there's a kid somewhere watching her. Like, there's just all of these assumptions about women and female athletes that get made all the time, that they're supposed to be role models and they're supposed to look pretty and look feminine. And it's the same conversation we had earlier today about boxing, is that you make all of these assumptions about what women are supposed to be. And then when they go out there and compete and people don't like what they see because it doesn't fit their ideals of what is supposed to be happening, everyone gets angry and mad at it.
Yeah, I wasn't angry or mad. And like
you looked at me with angry Nicolas Cage face.
Because I think there was something that Jess said in particular that maybe my daughter isn't ready for sport. And my daughter celebrates sports. My daughter actively participates in them, has tremendous relationships with athletes, and has plenty
with sports as adults. Yeah. We don't know how to handle it sometimes.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
But I would say, like, in a vacuum, outsized reaction and not a dissenting opinion, especially when in other variations of that sport, your reaction can shape potentially the decision there. It wasn't about that. And if you watched in that moment, it was clear that it was about other things there. So while I appreciate everybody's perspective, and I think I bridged some gaps here because we coded like we're on the same page, which kind of alludes that I'm on a different page. I think we're all on the same page, and we're all seeing everybody's perspective.
We're having different conversations. You can have a conversation about the difficulties of parenting and not start the conversation by saying Coco Gauff effed up and I had to hold my kid to the side for not watching it.
I agree. If someone said that, I would understand that. I didn't. I just explained a situation that I ran into as a parent, in a rare instance, thought I could control a situation, and you disagreed.
But you called her a bad role model, and that was where we started arguing.
Jess, I didn't.
You did.
No, Jess, I didn't. In fact, you invoked role model. In fact, what I thought was,
what?
In fact,
you
see
that
some.
up.
All right,
what are you talking about?
Jess, I understand the role model conversation, and I thought that I had a pretty good response in that it's convenient for us to pick and choose when someone is a role model, because I think Coco, in moments with my daughter where she hit an autographed ball to her, was very cognizant of being a role model. And I understand to project that onto any athlete, and this is not a woman thing, even though I'm not ignoring that as part of the discussion. It's impossible to uphold that standard. It's impossible for me to uphold that standard. I check my behavior around my daughter all the time because it's something that I can control. This was an instance in a world full of things that I can't control that I felt like I could. So I ran a diversionary tactic because, as with any 4-year-old, as many people will know, as you may know with your nieces and nephews, they replicate behavior almost instantly sometimes. And that was a behavior in that moment that I did not want my daughter replicating.
Mike, I am telling you, as I said that day, as I'm saying today, I am not saying that was a bad choice by you, and I'm not disagreeing with you that is what most parents would do. But in Jess's defense, as I sat here listening to you, whether or not you said the word role model, that's what came across in what you were saying.
Yeah, no, I probably said role model there.
Right, so we're just trying to get that across to you.
There are no infallible role models. Right. And I understand that. Right. And I understand that this is a moment in time where I could spin this into a positive. And what I'm saying is there's a lot of fatigue with that. The world is throwing stuff at us constantly. And whether you're controlling something that's on a YouTube algorithm or trying to run a diversionary tactic with slime, there are certain things that you can control. And in that moment, I wasn't prepared to explain to my daughter as to why Coco Gauff had an outsized 10-minute breakdown that anyone in the sport would tell you was outsized. Happy summer concert season, folks. It's Mike Ryan, and you know how often I go to concerts. You know how often I go to sporting events. I even mix in the occasional Major League Baseball game. Just did that a couple of weeks ago in Chicago. What a great experience that was. And Game Time made that experience so easy, because Game Time is an authorized ticket marketplace of Major League Baseball. It makes getting tickets faster and easier. Prices on the Game Time app actually go down the closer it gets to the first pitch. With killer last-minute deals, all-in pricing, views from your seat, and their lowest price guarantee, which I love because if for whatever reason you find a lower price out there, Game Time will match it 110%. Game Time takes the guesswork out of buying MLB tickets. You get flash deals, zone deals, Game Time ticket coverage too. Your purchase is covered with the most flexible customer service policy in the ticketing industry. Take the guesswork out of buying MLB tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use code DAN for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code DAN for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. When you're hiring for your small business, you want to find quality professionals that are right for the role. That's why you have to check out LinkedIn Jobs. LinkedIn Jobs has the tools to help find the right professionals for your team faster and for free. As Metalwork Media continues to grow as a content studio, we strive to hire only the best and most qualified candidates. Thankfully, with LinkedIn, they have made it easy for us to find them. LinkedIn isn't just a job board. LinkedIn helps you hire professionals you can't find anywhere else, even those who aren't actively searching for a new job but might be open to the perfect role. In a given month, over 70% of LinkedIn users don't visit other leading job sites. So, if you're not looking on LinkedIn, you're looking in the wrong place. On LinkedIn, 86% of small businesses get a qualified candidate within 24 hours. Hire professionals like a professional on LinkedIn. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/prep. That's linkedin.com/prep. Post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply.